Welcome to Ask Syd, the official podcast for Sydenham Clinic, a clinic where luxury meets medicine. We are on a quest for longevity. And I am so thrilled to be your host on this show. My name is Aanchal Bhatia. I am the founder and CEO of Sydenham Clinic and the author of Your Doctor is Not God and How to Be the CEO of Your Health. I look forward to taking this journey with all of you and having amazing thought leaders, guests, and members of our Sydenham team answering questions that you put forward. And I urge you, and I hope you will, ask Syd more questions on longevity, wellness, living to your highest potential. We are all trying to be the best versions of ourselves. And our physical, emotional, and mental health is foundational for us to achieve health and success in other realms of our life. So welcome to Ask Syd. Welcome back to Ask Syd. And as you can see, we're in our clinic here in Houston, and I'm joined by Dr. Adam Brittain, who you all met last time. He's our awesome concierge physician who practices the most amazing precision medicine in the city. Thank you so much, Dr. Brittain, for coming back on the show.
Thank you, Aanchal, for having me back. I appreciate it.
And today, for all you biohackers, we're going to tell you more about hacking your biology with stress. Yes, you heard me right. Stress can be a good thing. And Dr. Brittain's going to explain how.
Great to be back, Aanchal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stress is usually considered quite the bad negative aspect in our lives and can affect us clinically too, as we know. The unanticipated stresses of traffic, someone cuts us off, the traffic around the gallery at Christmas time, the illness of a loved one. The unanticipated stresses cause a massive release of cortisol, increases blood pressure, increases visceral fat. All the bad things that we associate stress with happens during these times of stress. But as you mentioned, there are other kinds of stresses of survival, fight or flight type stresses, activate different pathways and can actually be beneficial to our health.
Example, can you elaborate?
Sure, absolutely. So anytime you put the body through a stress that it deems survival based, i.e. fasting. Sleep is one, but lack of sleep is certainly a survival
So you
mechanism.
can create good stress through lack of sleep?
You can create good stress through sleep, but the opposite of that, the lack of sleep, is so detrimental, the body actually benefits from a restorative type of sleep, and we'll get into that a little bit later.
Okay.
Things like infrared sauna, alterations in temperature, cold plunge, also activate different pathways that go through what we call an mTOR pathway that goes through a noradrenaline system where it's a fight or flight type response. Exercise is another great example of stressing the body to an extent that it's survival, very intense exercise, it's going into survival mode. Hyperbaric oxygen, another excellent example. Both excess pressure to push the oxygen into your tissues more efficiently, but also we look at the other side of that coin, lack of oxygen. When people are at higher altitudes or even when they're sick in the hospital, activate these fight or flight type responses, and this can produce what we term autophagy, a concept we talk about a lot, which is not known to a lot of folks, but it's so important to know about because that's kind of how you go in and repair your damaged and dying cells.
Right.
There's a programmed cell death that's different than this. The programmed cell death is what we see during embryological stages of our lives when certain cells die, but they're programmed to die to benefit us in the long term. Autophagy is more of a repair type mechanism where the stress the body incurs then down the road develops into a kind of a housekeeping effect where it identifies the sick and dying cells and it repairs them. And it does this whenever the stress is encountered. So if you put your body in these certain situations, the body will recognize this, send out signals to the immune system to come in and clean up and repair these damaged cells, right? And the repair mechanisms are so intricate. Like I said, it's through an mTOR system, through chaperones and different proteins. But what happens is it identifies the damaged part, it replaces those damaged parts by engulfing the cell, performing the repair mechanism, and then it spits it back out as a new healthy cell. So these stressful situations promote these types of things.
Fabulous. So what you're saying is that putting ourselves in these extreme conditions of extreme heat or extreme cold or a fasted state or exercising, it helps our immune system activate itself.
Absolutely.
And clean up all these zombie cells.
That's absolutely true.
And this contributes to longevity
or
prevention of disease? Like, how is it really helping us?
Right. When we look at the cellular health, we look at the mitochondria. We've spoken about the mitochondria before. The mitochondria is the engine of the cell. So usually during these times of stress, what happens is the damage that was being done previous to the mitochondria is recognized, right? And if that is fixed, if the engine of the cell or the engine of the car is fixed, the cell can live longer. What's the body made of? Made of cells. Every tissue is just a big conglomerate of cells. So if you can promote more longevity of individual cells on the cellular level with these types of mechanisms, longevity is you're benefited for those steps in terms of longevity.
Right. On the flip side, if you have too many senescent cells in your body, I'm presuming because of toxicity or inflammation, like what happens to your body if you have too many of these?
Right. Well, we talked about
cells?
last time, the basis of every disease is inflammation. So if you have more of these zombie cells, more of these damaged cells, you can be continually activating the immune system to promote more and more inflammation. And you get symptoms of inflammation when the rate of inflammation supersedes the rate of cellular turnover. And really, the autophagy is this cellular turnover. So if you have more of these damaged cells and you're not doing things to the body to help it restore itself, the level of inflammation will supersede and be much more than the level of cellular turnover. And then you have symptoms, disease as a result of the inflammation.
Great. Can you also describe to us the different biohacks, if I may call them? Like, what's the difference between an infrared sauna versus what's the difference, like, with a cryo? Like, what does heat do to you? What does cold do to you? Like, what exactly is happening in our body?
So we'll start with the temperature dysregulation. So when the body is exposed to extreme temperatures, we'll start with the sauna. The way the sauna differs from a steam room, for instance, the steam room is all superficial heat. So the steam is water vapor that never really penetrates deep into the skin. You sweat out some of the toxins, but you don't get that deep penetration. With the infrared sauna, the wavelength of the infrared waves goes deeper into the tissues, hits the vasculature, vasodilates the veins and arteries, helps release some of the toxins, but even more than the release of toxins, the reason infrared sauna is so important in this autophagy type of phenomenon is because it gets deeper and it activates these heat shock proteins. These are proteins that are released and stabilize damaged parts of other proteins, and as they refold the protein, these heat shock proteins help keep the proteins in the right 3D configuration, so to speak, and allows them to be, now they're in the active form, whereas before they were damaged. These heat shock proteins come in and repair these damaged proteins. And so much more than just the heat and the release of toxins through the sweating, you get these heat shock proteins. And on the flip side, the cold plunge does the same thing through what it calls cold shock proteins. So irregardless of the type of stress, either heat or cold, these proteins are released to help stabilize these damaged parts of the cell, and that's where you get the increase also in the stem cell release. You increase in different types of growth factors that help angiogenesis, in other words, formation of new blood vessels to increase blood flow to the tissues that need it most. So it's a lot of different mechanisms at play here, but it's these heat shock and cold shock proteins and these temperature extremes that really do the most, serve the most benefit to the patient.
Now, is one better than the other?
It's kind of a different scenario. The infrared sauna, you get a lot more toxin release. The reason the cold plunge is so beneficial, because the way we regulate our temperature, when we get cold, we shiver, right?
Yes.
And when that shivering, that vibration of the body generates heat, in an attempt to warm our core body temperature. When you're submerged, and this is one reason why the cold plunge I think is better than the cryotherapy, because when you're submerged, you can't really shiver, right? So your body holds on to that cold temperature, decreases the core temperature more efficiently, and allows these cold shock proteins. It also stimulates the vagus nerve. So a lot of people who suffer from dysautonomia, autonomic symptoms such as dizziness, alterations in heart rate and blood pressure, can also help those types of symptoms because it stimulates the vagal nerve. The vagal nerve kind of slows the body down. So when you do this cold plunge, the stress response is released. You get more of a relaxation through that vagal nerve stimulation. So there's so many different benefits.
Is there like a minimum time that you should be in the cold plunge?
It depends on the temperature of the water, obviously, right. And it depends on the person's body fat composition. So, thinner people get colder faster. So you have to take that into account. Usually they say 3 to 4 minutes is kind of the upper echelon of what you should be doing in terms of duration. Temperature-wise, 38 to 40 degrees to 45 degrees is kind of where your sweet spot is in terms of getting the most benefit from the cold shock proteins and the vagal nerve stimulation. So it varies. A lot of folks can't spend that much time under a cold plunge. So you kind of have to work yourself up to it. Sometimes it's good to start in the infrared sauna, get yourself releasing some of those toxins, then take a dip in the cold plunge, stimulate the vagus
nerve. Is that
nerve.
a cheat code?
It's not really a cheat code. I mean, by the time you go from the infrared to walk to the cold plunge, your body temperature is more or less equilibrated, at that point. So you're not really cheating so much, because once you take the dip, your temperature drops pretty exponentially. So I don't think it's cheating. I think it's a way people can tolerate a little bit better, and then maybe go back in the infrared sauna after the cold plunge. So those are types of things, stresses, again, that promote this cellular turnover.
Right.
And I can tell you from experience, after doing it, you truly feel rejuvenated. I mean, you can feel the change in your body physiology.
Mental clarity as well,
Mental
right?
clarity, you feel like you're walking on air. Things could be happening to you in all directions. Nothing seems to bother you. You just seem to be in a very calm state of mind. And again, it goes back to emotional health, how important emotional health is in terms of longevity. So it all really fits together in a great little package if you can find out what's right for you.
Right.
But just giving our members and patients the information that they can do with what they wish in terms of promoting themselves and in terms of a longer, healthier life.
For sure. I think having that information and knowing why you're doing it, what's happening in your body, it's not just a biohacking fad. It's not just the cool thing to do. There is science behind it.
And again, the biohacking movement is interesting. I don't speak of anything unless it's based in the scientific literature. I don't speak of anything to my patients or our members unless it's proven with placebo studies, with real scientific studies in reputable journals. So just because I hear something or something's worked for me or something's worked for one of my patients, I don't speak of it as a scientific
anecdotally,
truth.
right.
Right. There is anecdotal information and good information out there, but everything I speak of, I've pulled up articles and showed it to our patients during our talks.
Yes.
Here's what the cold shock and heat shock proteins actually do. Here's what, increasing the pressure on the hyperbaric oxygen chamber does to the level of your oxygen and how it delivers more oxygen to your tissues. What higher and lower oxygen content does to the physiology of the body. So I show them the papers, I show them the evidence. Everything's based. A lot of biohacking isn't necessarily based in science, so we have to be very careful about what we've got to cherry pick the good stuff that's really scientifically based and really question the other stuff that maybe not be. Not dismiss it, but really dive deeper into it, because I'm kind of a stickler for making sure
evidence.
that we give out good information, and that's really important.
And I think more importantly, what you and your team here at Sydenham does is personalized solutions, because one size does not fit all. Everybody has different preferences, lifestyle, different reasons or constraints where they can't, do one versus the other. So you do work very closely to personalize these protocols?
You have to, again, you can't recommend intermittent fasting to everybody. You can't recommend these things to every single person. It has to be patient-centered and patient-based, based on their genetics, based on gut health, based on nutrition. Everything we've talked about in the past as being the 7 pillars or so of longevity, they all have to fit together in a box specific for that patient. Okay, they can't be, again, just an umbrella type of diagnosis or treatment plan.
Right. However, generally speaking, if you were to prioritize, like your first go-to, like if you can only do one thing and take out like a few minutes every day, would be the cold plunge.
Well, right? I would say in terms of all the aspects
modalities
of what produces the most in terms of autophagy and cell turnover, I would say exercise first and foremost. A lot of folks will substantiate that. I think in terms of getting oxygen to the tissues, promoting stressful body situations in terms of putting your body in that cellular turnover type of mentality, exercise would be, if I had to choose one, exercise would be number one.
So even within exercise, can you elaborate a little bit more on how much, how little, what type of exercise will give you that benefit?
Right. Well, we hear a lot about PO2 max,
yes.
the max amount of oxygen you use in a certain amount of time. We talk about, people always ask me, how long do I have to work out?
Zone 2.
And you go to the gym and you see people on their phones for half the time. So you really have to get yourself in a mindset. You have to be in a certain level or zone, right, for a certain amount of time. People talk about zone 2 where you get a certain amount of lactic acid buildup. I speak to patients who will work out for the first time and they'll stop working out because their muscles are sore.
Right.
They don't feel good the next day because they can't walk. But that's what you want. Yeah. That's what you need. If you get to a point where you're working out and you're not sore anymore, then you're not getting that lactic acid protection. You're not getting that lactic acid, that zone 2 that we speak of.
So it is true, no pain, no gain.
No pain, no gain. But the heart rate has to be at a certain level for a certain amount of time. I tell people at the hospital, take the stairs. I mean, if you take 10, 12 flights of stairs a day, that's more than enough for most people, and it will take them 5-10 minutes to do that.
That's the other thing I've seen in your practice, that you make it very simple and doable. You don't need to spend a ton of money. You don't need to you don't really need to join these fancy clubs or memberships. You can still achieve this within your normal lifestyle, but if you want to go extreme and you have access, and that's another part of how you personalize it, right?
Well, people in the blue zones don't have expensive memberships to Equinox.
Right.
They're carrying things from here to there. They're finding and fixing their own foods. They're growing their own foods. They're the sense of community. So no, you don't have to do those things. Go out and go camping and just live off the land for a week and see how easy it is. It's not easy. But neither is...
Just go in the snow. You don't need a cold plunge.
Neither is longevity. Longevity is not easy either. And I mentioned that in my first talk.
Yes.
People want to come in with a magic bullet. They want to ask for the stem cells or something that's going to make them young forever. This is not a negotiable thing. Here's the things that are scientifically based to improve longevity. We have to put those actions in a plan and into action in such that it becomes part of your lifestyle. Again, it can't be a fad. It has to be a lifestyle. It has to be a part of your life. So, that's what we stress to our patients, and that's where we see our patients have the most success.
So, can you share a little bit more about your personal? I know, you really believe a lot in dividing your week, and you have your own personal protocol for yourself.
Yeah.
Would you mind sharing that with people? What is it that you follow?
Sure. I mean, I do go to the gym. I do a lot of resistance training with weights. I think healthy bones. People talk about how longevity is directly proportional to your muscle mass.
Right.
So resistance training is imperative to gaining muscle mass and longevity. I mix in aerobic at least 3 times a week. I do short bursts of running. I don't like to run necessarily, so I do short bursts of sprinting on the football field over here. And I do things, I walk the dogs a lot. I take the stairs at the hospital 3 times a week. I'll do 12 to 15 flights of stairs in a minute and a half. So little short bursts of energy that gets your heart rate up to 120 or something, whatever your target heart rate is, of course, is different for every patient. But for a certain amount of time is really what you kind of want to focus on. That stresses the body enough to produce these types of mechanisms that puts the body in, oh my God, and the body tells itself, I need to survive here. I need
Right.
to, I need to take in enough oxygen. And that's why people get sore after they work out. Their muscles are exceeding the availability of oxygen at that time, and they start burning sugars instead, and that produces the lactic acid. And it's the lactic acid level that we've seen that is released during this zone 2 type of exercise. So I really try to, again, it's my lifestyle. If I don't get finished here till 7 o'clock, I force myself to go. It's not, again, non-negotiable. If it disallows me from fixing dinner or doing things I like to do earlier in the evening, I don't do those things. I do the exercise is number one priority, then going home and trying to eat healthy. The cold plunge and the infrared sauna stuff, I only can do about 3 times a week. But that's, you don't need to do it every single day necessarily.
No.
And I think the key thing is you want to confuse the body. Confusing the body as much as you can produces these stresses and exemplifies these stresses. And exercises, if you do the same exercises every time, there's no confusion there.
No.
If you change up your routine, even the order of the exercises, you're confusing your muscles in such a way that you're producing that.
Even I think cognition, stress. I'm sure that has a benefit for cognition too,
absolutely,
right?
Absolutely. Anything that stimulates the mind to think about these things is going to stimulate cognition, absolutely. But again, it's the blood flow, increased blood flow, it's the other mechanisms that are at work. So that's pretty much my routine. And I love going home and visiting family, and I have a great time. But one thing I don't do at home is eat very well or exercise. So about the 3rd or 4th day, I'm kind of grumpy. And I think my family can pick up on that. So once it becomes part of your lifestyle, you get away from, I got to go to the gym, I hate this, to if you don't go, it's even more of a letdown because it's a part of your, it's entwined in your DNA, so to speak, throughout the day. So
no, really, it's like a shot of happy hormones that you need to survive through the day. Really.
Yeah, but that shot of hormones, that exactly right. That release is not a bad release, like a cortisol would be under a bad stress, right? It's a good noradrenaline, epinephrine release,
right?
A release of a high feeling, a release of the body saying, "I've got to survive in this moment." How do I do that? Well, I need more healthy cells. I need to replace my mitochondria. I need to do the things I need to do to make myself live longer, not just healthier, but live longer at this point.
Right.
And then as you do that, you replenish the damaged areas and you replenish it with new revitalized tissue.
What about like cold showers? Like, do they have any benefit?
Again, it's all relative. I mean, certainly in the mornings, starting off with a hot shower and turning it all the way cold, I say a lot of my patients do that. They see a lot of benefit from that. Would you get as much benefit as taking a dip in a 38-degree bath for 4 minutes? Probably not as much as the cold shock proteins and as much as the cell turnover as you would, but certainly more than just getting out of a hot shower, absolutely. So it's all relative, but you get benefits from the small changes too. And I think that's good advice because if you start people off way up here, they're going to get discouraged and they're not going to want to do it again, right? So tell them to ease into it. And then as it becomes part of their routine, then they'll notice the benefits, they'll feel the benefits, right? And once they feel the benefits, not doing it is worse than doing it at the beginning, yeah. Much
so
worse.
What you're saying is like this really has to get embedded in your lifestyle. So these are not like things that you do for entertainment or because they're cool biohacks. This is something that we need to simplify and just make it a part of our life and find what works for you. Work if you have a concierge doctor like yourself, work with your precision medicine team.
Yeah,
try and personalize those
exactly.
protocols.
I don't know anybody who likes to go to the gym necessarily or likes to get in freezing cold water.
Yeah.
But it's the way you feel afterwards. It's the way you feel once your body's gone through that transition of, survival mode and replenishing damaged tissue. So it's that euphoria that you feel maybe during too. Some people get the runner's high and everything. I can't imagine that running that long distance, but getting that euphoric high that brings people back. But again, knowing you're doing it for your body, knowing you're doing it to live for you and your family longer, but living longer, healthier. We always talk about that in terms of, longevity is not just the age, but it's the number of years you have that are healthy, that you're able to enjoy with your friends and family that really matter.
So, can we also be the other extreme, and can some people take it to a level that's dangerous? Or, I mean, would you think that there is an extreme element to this which is counterproductive?
There's an extreme element to everything in moderation, as we say. Certainly, people who exercise to a point of exhaustion and damaging tissues certainly can have a negative benefit. You see a lot of long distance cyclists and runners who end up injuring themselves. Certainly an injury can be detrimental to someone who's trying to maintain an exercise schedule, because it takes you off your schedule and it prevents you from doing the things you need to do. So doing something safely in moderation to where you get to a level where it's stressful enough where you're benefiting from it, but not overdoing the level. Certainly submerging yourself in 38-degree water for more than what you should can be detrimental as well, for obvious reasons. Infrared sauna, you have to stay in there for quite some time, but things like sleep, lack of sleep, we know, can literally kill you. Lack of sleep can have serious consequences, especially later in life, because we said before, you can't make those hours up. So that non-REM deep sleep is when we kind of cleanse the body, cleanse the mind. So everything has to be, again, centered around the patient and centered on what the patient can do. Not everyone can do 12 flights in a minute and a half.
Right.
So do what they can do to a point where they just can't see themselves doing anymore. That's the lactic acid, the oxygen starvation is going to produce those stressful situations, but it's different for every patient.
Right.
So it has to be done at a level where they're going to see the benefits and not be so discouraged the first time.
Which is why I guess having your primary care doctor is
great
important, because they will tell you how much is too much.
Great to have a quarterback, a coach that's going to help tell you and help motivate you and guide you along the way. But again, the knowledge that we accumulate here at Sydenham with all the testing helps us to come up with a plan, and it helps us to delineate what is right for each individual patient, and it's different for everybody. And patients that know that, they know that they can only do what they can do, but as they make the improvements and the increases, they love it because they can see the progress.
Right.
And you're not going to see the progress in longevity right away, obviously, but you'll know that you're doing the right things to your body and for your body that's going to give you the right tools to really extrapolate as much as you can from this life and to live the longest, healthiest life you can.
Especially in today's lifestyle, we're all too comfortable.
Again, we don't carry anything anymore.
No.
If we carry something, it's the bag from Saks into the living room or the groceries. Back in the caveman days or even in the blue zones, people are carrying rocks and they're carrying buggies across to the other side of the camp to prepare dinner.
Or being outdoors.
Being outdoors is a huge. For me, I'm outdoors as much as I can be, and so being outdoors, getting the vitamin D, being again the sense of community, the mental health of all this, the sunlight in your face, the people, you go up to places that are cloudy and cold and rainy for most of the year, and you see a lot of things like depression. You see seasonal affective disorders, things like that. So that type of thing really, those type of things really benefit each person, but individually it benefits.
Individually, so we all need to be mindful about this new modern lifestyle of ours, and somewhere trying to incorporate ancient wisdom.
I agree. Things are too easy for us, especially here in River Oaks. Things are too easy. Everyone makes it easy for us, and that's okay, I guess. But we can't forget about the things that keep us healthy. Right. It's
and we do this to our parents too. Very often, at least in my culture, we respect our elders and we will carry things for them, or we will not let them get up and do their work. But I feel like we're doing a disservice to them. Or saying, no, don't take the stairs, take the elevator.
Let's find the closest parking space to the mall, as opposed to parking on the 6th floor and taking the stairs. It doesn't take a lot of change.
Right.
You may get some pushback from your loved ones, but you know,
you don't love me, you don't respect me, you want me to walk.
But you're doing it because you love them and you respect them,
I know.
and you know, so and you know, those are small things you can do, and having someone there to guide you along the way and help you with those things is really quite beneficial.
Well, thank you. I think this is something so doable, right? Like these are nuggets of wisdom that we've had for very long, and now incorporating them with all that amazing testing and the scientific evidence.
Right, and a lot of this is brand new stuff, which is so it makes medicine today so exciting.
Right.
We talked about last time. There's that reactive medicine where I see people, you know, in the hospital who come in with certain ailments and symptoms. What we're doing now is really diving deeper into what makes each cell operate at its most efficient level and live its longest, healthiest life. That's what we want to do with our patients. And at the most basic level, these are the types of things that are in the literature that can really benefit us on a day-to-day basis, and you know, and really help us live a longer, healthier life.
Great, thank you. Well, before we sign off, you know, we always ask for a secret sutra. So we want to know like a secret biohack or a secret sutra related to this extreme stress, good stress that our doctor is prescribing us.
Boy, that's a tough one. I think that, again, I always try to confuse my body as much as I can.
Okay.
I don't want it to be in a state of comfort. I don't want it to be in a state of equilibrium in terms of not having these stresses. So I always try to do things that are a little bit different. Whether it's the length of the cold plunge or the temperature of the infrared sauna or the wavelength of the sauna, whether it's the type of exercise, changing that up every time. If I'm not sore the next day, I'm not doing something right. So confusing the body as much as I can in terms of keeping it on its toes, so to speak. Right? Because if you get complacent and the body gets into this muscle memory type of thing, it gets comfortable with driving up to the drive-through. Listen, I cheat. I know you don't think I do, but I do. I cheat. I have my one day where I cheat, and you know, I always regret it the next day because it's the
you
easy,
feel awful, right?
I feel awful. It's the easy way out. You know, so always putting my body in a state of kind of confusion, kind of changing things up.
You change the cheat day up too?
Cheat day is pretty
standard,
regimented, which makes it a good cheat day. But always doing those things to really promote autophagy, right? And I want our viewers to kind of research what autophagy is. It actually means the body is eating itself, is self-cannibalizing itself. So kind of a macabre type of thought process. But I want our viewers to learn these things as we talk about them on their own too, because I want them to get different perspectives. I want us to introduce the concepts, but I want them to learn on their own as well, because that's very important with your healthcare is to learning. But
it's a partnership, right?
But having good information, make sure it's good information. Make sure it's not a chat room, you know, not because on chat rooms everyone's talking about negative stuff. Go to reputable sites, Mayo Clinic, you know, Cleveland Clinic, and get good information. Search the journals. You know, do a PubMed search or go to Google Scholar is a great reference to.
Well, now you have ChatGPT, which will scrub all your millions of articles every.
Well,
so
that's a great resource, though.
It is. I'm sure AI is going to really give us some more biohacks and tools, incredible information, but nothing like the personal relationship that you have with your physician, because we're at the end of the day humans, right?
Yeah, the AI stuff concerns me. I know there's a lot of interesting technology there, but nothing takes the place of that human touch, and that's why I do what I do, is for that relationship aspect.
No. Well, thank you for all the compassionate care that you give our patients, and thank you for this amazing information. So, like Dr. Brittain said, stress your body out and get yourselves to start eating the zombie cells up. Like, this all sounds quite awful, but it's actually fabulous for you, because the moment your cells are healthy, your whole body is healthy, and then your life's healthy and you're happy, and that contributes to longevity. So thank you so much for tuning into another episode of Ask Syd. Please do send us your questions, send us topics that you would like our awesome Sydnam team to answer for you, and we look forward to bringing you more inspiring episodes in the future. So before I sign off, remember, health is by choice, not by chance. Keep choosing well. Thank you.